On this episode of the Living on the B-Side podcast, I say hello and welcome to Willow. Willow is an immersive sound experience producer, a dedicated sound healing practitioner, passionate about helping creatives to reclaim their inner artist. Willow's profound love for music and psychology sparked a transformative 10-year journey, guiding her across the globe to unravel the intricacies of the human psyche, healing modalities, and the potent power of art and self-expression. Now let's dive straight into today's episode. Hey B-Siders, thanks for joining me for another episode for my podcast. And today I'm joined by Willow, and just the name itself will already give you a bit of a hint that we're diving into something a bit more magical, maybe a bit mystery as well, but we'll obviously see what happens with that word. But I'm very excited. So thanks Willow for joining me on my show today. I'm very excited. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am super excited as well. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I'm just super excited to have someone here to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive straight in. First, I obviously want to go into what you do, because that will probably then lead into your story around how you ended up where you are and how music has played a big part in it and still does. So you are an immersive sound experience producer and also a sound healing practitioner. So for anyone that has no idea what that is, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you do it with? And then maybe we can go into your backstory after that.
Okay, so sound healing. Oh my God, it's such an incredible modality, in terms of using sound to really help the human brain and also the human body to really relax. A lot of people today in the world have a very hard time to relaxing and letting go, and that was me for my whole life. This kind of syndrome of having a restless mind. Since I was a child, I've always really tried to meditate. I still remember like lying on my bed, being 10 years old, like, oh my God, like I want to learn how to meditate. If I start now, I'm going to be like a master by the time I'm like 30 or something. And I quite could never, ever really achieve that. And the first moment in my life when I really felt that deep state of between like sleep and consciousness was when I experienced sound healing and those big metal balls on my body. So there is many different ways of conducting a sound bath. I use instruments, acoustic instruments like singing bowls, metal singing bowls, crystal singing bowls, gongs, different flutes, different sorts of instruments, mixing it with electronic music production. So the goal is to really bring a person into a space of relaxation and of deep, deep meditation, where your body and your nervous system has time to really let go and allow the body to heal itself. So the instruments are not per se healing. I am not per se a healer. I more facilitate a space for people where they can really step into that for themselves.
Oh, that's so juicy. I admit I have heard of obviously the bowls you use. I've seen photos and I kind of heard about it sort of on the outside of my world. And I've also heard how beneficial it is, but I've not ever met anyone that actually does it. So I'm really glad you're here, because whilst your story is super important, and we might have to start there and continue on the conversation around how what you do benefits so greatly to people who want to experience it and how they can probably do that. But yeah, before we go deeper into that part, I think it's important for anyone that's here today to understand why you're so passionate about this. So I think we should probably go to the point where your life changed and how obviously music is so interconnected with that. You can't leave that out, because what you do is sound, is music. But yeah, tell us about the lead up to where you are now, your story.
Totally. So, I traveled for a very long time. I traveled for almost like 10 years. And there was this one particular day. So, I'm standing in a parking lot in Southern California after a whole day going from one bar to the next, trying to find my new job. And I'm waiting for this guy called Jesse, who I met earlier that day, and he kind of promised me to help me find my new job. So, he rolls up in his blue sports car. And as I open the door and we start chatting, I'm like, wow, what a nice guy. Helping me to find a job, like how lovely of him. Literally a minute later, he slams on the gas, and I can sense that something in him has shifted, and I start feeling really unsafe. So I have no seat belt, and I'm in this foreign country. He starts ripping around doing donuts, and I'm like, wow, why? Another person, another human just trying to show off. So as I look up and I see this wall that we are speeding towards, and there's no way that we're going to make the turn. And this is when I hear this voice that says, surrender, relax. If you don't, you are going to die. And for the first time in my whole life, I completely let go. I literally just melt into the chair. And then I get these flashbacks of all these moments in my life where I was invited to sing, invited to share my art, invited to share my voice in general. And instead of saying yes, I said no because fear was completely taking over my life. All these moments, all these
Oops.
get
Yeah.
out there and follow my dreams. Yeah, are you
You
there?
just broke up a little bit, so we just missed part of where you said something about not following your dream, I think you said.
Yeah, so I had these flashbacks, right, where I just
Yeah.
saw all these dreams of my life that I had that I wasn't following because of fear, because I was deeply just scared of getting out there. So next thing you know, I am being pulled out of the car, and I can only honestly just remember this woman looking at me so intensely, and being like, "Don't touch your face, don't move your body. You have been in a terrible, terrible accident." And honestly, I feel nothing. I'm completely numb. I taste blood in my mouth. I can see it all over my hands. Looking at the totally wrecked car against the wall, money flying everywhere. But, this moment really, really changed the trajectory of my life. Literally from that point onwards, I knew that it was time for me to step into the artist that I wanted to become and really start saying yes to life. And not only saying yes to life, but also saying yes to play, just really like allowing myself to be that person that I wanted to be. And to be very honest, it really didn't happen overnight. And it was definitely not my first wake up call, but I finally started to show up for myself and really follow those dreams that I've had since I was a little girl.
Oh, wow. That's wow. I'm a little bit I wouldn't like to say speechless, but ah, that's incredible. I mean, yeah, I'm a bit lost for words at this point because I'm sort of absorbing everything you said, and I'm a very visual person, so I'm kind of in my own mind envisioning that moment, that scene that know you're gonna crash, and just hearing those words, and then yeah, wow. So, and you said you've had similar situations where obviously you got a nudge saying, Willow, seriously, come on, listen, do we really have to get you to that point where you have this accident? Um, wow. And I guess in a way we all probably get those nudges, but not as extreme, I hope, for anyone, because I don't want that to happen to anyone. It's horrible.
Honestly, this is, as I said, this is not my first wake up call. Um, I don't know if we have time on this episode to share, but I've had something similar happen to me before, like literally like 6 years, maybe 5 years before that happened. Very similar vibes. So, that's the thing, like, you don't have to get there. Like,
Mm.
there are ways and there are, for everybody, different ways, to really figure out why you've been preventing yourself and sabotaging yourself from really going after your dreams. And this is exactly why, I am not only a declared artist today and I really go for every opportunity that I have, but I also developed a passion and a life path to really empower artists and people who are creatives who really want to step into their power and remove those barriers that are sabotaging them in like in figuring out their dreams and going after their dreams really.
Mm. And I'm making an assumption here, so please tell me if that's not correct. Is what you do now part of helping release that subconscious, whatever it is, like that connection between what we do every day to what we really want? Is that part of the sound healing bit, helping people nudge them
No.
along?
Well, in sound healing therapy, it's a very gentle therapy. So
Hmm.
people go through their own process in their own kind of bubble, being submerged by the sound. I like to call it like it's almost like molasses. It's a very deep sound. It envelops you almost like a blanket. So everybody has their own processes, and there have been people who had like life realizations about their own path in life and what are they doing and what do they actually want to do. However, I also specialize in, I don't want to call myself a coach. I'm more a guide for people who feel stuck in their ways. They're stuck in their own way. They're repeating old patterns and they somehow can't get to this place where they can fully express themselves. And I'm not talking about becoming like, a worldly renowned artist, but so that you can just transform that experience from your life into something that really matters to you and that not only, helps you transform this experience, but also like inspire and move others.
Right, okay. Gotcha. I think. Thanks. That's great. So obviously that process to where you are today hasn't happened overnight. We all know people who do self-improvement and all this kind of self-development, personal development stuff. It's not linear. It's like up and down, left and right, and then, whatever else in between. What has helped you along that journey? Is it just knowing that you have this your healing sounds to help yourself and then use that and explore more? Is that kind of what helped you get to where you are today? Or, you know, how did you end up where you are today? Was that a long process, short process?
Yeah, it was a really long process. It was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and especially a lot of lack of purpose. I've always been obsessed about purpose. I always felt like I had to find this one thing, that I would just go for and master since I was very young. Um, and what helped along this journey is definitely after this car crash, after this near death experience, continued on my travels and eventually, I think it wasn't that long after, I think 6 months after that, I experienced a really beautiful ceremony and encounter of elders in the jungle in Central America. And in one of those ceremonies, I received, a message that I should work with sound. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time because it wasn't like you should be a performer, you should be like a musician. It was like you just need to work with sound. And I had no idea what a sound bath was at the time. Like I've never heard of it. That was like probably yeah, like 7 years ago. A week later, I am in the jungle and I see this guy rolling by with his suitcase full of singing bowls. And I've seen singing bowls before, but not huge like this. Some of them are really big, right? You can stand in them almost. So I started chatting with this guy. His name is Kirk, and he ended up giving me my first class of sound therapy. And this is the first moment I had my ball on my body. And, he started playing those balls that's like around you and on you. And I went into a state of like non-existence. I was here but not here, and when he stopped, he looked at me, he's like, "So, how long do you think I was playing for?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe 15 minutes." He looked at me and he said, "It's been an hour and a half." So I was gone. Yeah.
And is that like, I wouldn't say normal, but was that was he surprised by that, or what was his sort of feedback to you? That was just
Oh,
okay?
no, that's totally normal because, we have different states of our brain, right? Different brain waves. So when we fall into the other brain waves that are just before sleep, what happens is that you kind of lose track of time, right? When you sleep, you don't really know. When you meditate as well, often people put like, like an alarm or something. So it's very normal to lose track of time. I have this all the time in my sound baths. People are like, "What? You're already done?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's been an hour and a half." They're like, "Please continue." It feels so good. So it's a definitely very normal state, but you see with my condition of ADHD, past like depression and anxiety, I was in constant state of alertness. And I really believe that a lot of the world today is in that state. It's that state where you almost constantly feel like someone is there to get you, whether if it's your job or someone's looking at you. Anyways, it's really this state. And this was the first time in my life where I like experienced safety and really being able to allow my body and mind to drift away into like, my inner landscapes, as I like to call it, instead of constantly fearing threat around you. So, with that being said, to answer to your question, um, I got a pair, like a set of bowls after this encounter with this incredible man, and these bowls have really helped me to navigate some moments in my life, as much as just music.
Mhm.
Just listening to music really allows the mind to drift away and to feel this kind of safety. And that's the interesting thing about sound healing is that sometimes there's going to be a really simple instrument like chimes that will bring people to a completely different world because it reminds you of your grandma's porch and how comfortable you felt hanging out around. These sounds sometimes can really bring out a memory that is not even that you can't even remember. It's registered in your emotional memory, but not in your visual or even auditive memory. So it's like bringing these feelings, and sometimes people starts crying, sometimes they start laughing, sometimes you see their body twitch, even if they don't notice it.
Mhm.
I see like what's happening. And it's because they're responding to a sound without even being aware of it.
I love this. I love these sort of
Mm.
synchronicities that are happening, because at the moment I'm sort of reading a lot about, and it's always kind of the same topic, which is interesting in itself. What you just mentioned, like these sort of early baby childhood memories we have of sound, and how that can actually help us, like you say, feel like safety or be able to get in a state of calmness. So I've been trying to figure out for myself what kind of sound that is, and I figure for me it's fire crackling.
Mm.
Yeah, because my
Yep.
grandma had a fireplace, and I just love that. So I just put that on a lot, and it automatically gets me down a level. So what you're saying is true. So I just want to kind of confirm it as proof that it works for anyone that's here today. That's why I'm sharing this. So I think that's just probably a simple way, if someone can figure that out, to help them already
Oh,
feel a
yes.
bit calmer. So
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. And I really encourage people to, do a little bit of research and listen to different sounds of nature. Like, I love including sounds of nature into my sound baths, whether if it's the ocean or even crickets, or as you mentioned, crackling of the fire, mm, even sometimes the rain falling. Like there's so many different nature sounds that have a tendency to calm us. But it really depends on your personal experience because, some people might have a difficult moment during rain, so that's what's going to be more ingrained in their brain. So it's really I think important to look into it and kind of experience for yourself. I mean, some people can have a spiritual experience while listening to the Beatles because that's what reminds them of that time in their life when they felt so free or so good or whatever type of emotion that sparks them up, you know?
Yes, exactly. And that's probably why music is such a constant in everything, in the whole history of humans, I think. In some shape or form, there was always music. And I just feel like these days we kind of forget how important it is and how, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me think. Like there is a purpose to it. It's not just there to be on the radio. Sure, we need that. That's absolutely cool. But I do think there's a bigger purpose behind it, and we've just forgotten that there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I
So
really agree. So, a little mini story, I met this man, I think he was, saxophone player or something like this along those lines, and he told me something that really stayed with me forever. He said that his biggest dream in life is so that there's 24 hours with no music in the whole world. Like nothing. No music in movies, no music on the radio, all the CDs just suddenly don't work. Nothing. For people to really realize how music is important in their life. Because it's only when you lose something that you can then realize how important it is. Like, can we even imagine a movie without music? Like, try to make people feel those emotions just with, those words that we are saying, right? The melodies, the chord progressions, everything has a key to our heart, right? That can either wake us up and encourage us, or it can like really make us feel sad and melancholic. So this guy, this man that I met completely shifted kind of my vision around music because I really saw that, like how beautiful it would be if the world as a whole could experience something like that.
yes. Yeah. Oh, that'd be that'd be terrible for me.
Just one
Trying
day.
yeah, we could manage because at the end of the day, I always say, even if CDs don't work, telly doesn't work, you have nature. You can't shut up nature. So, you know, there's still the birds singing or, the breeze through the trees or water or whatever else there is. So you're not without sound. It's just like I agree. We take it for
Yeah.
granted for sure.
Well, you see, like, I've traveled a lot. I'm saying this very humbly, but I've seen a lot of places in the world, and when I was Australia is kind of beautiful and for its nature to be so lush and so present. There's a lot of places in the world where you do not hear birds sing. You do not hear the wind going through the leaves. You don't hear those things. Something that I found really interesting was when I was traveling in Japan. In Japanese train stations, you actually have a constant like sound of nature playing in the background because they're trying to bring kind of that like maybe to relax people or something. I don't know exactly why they do it. Um, but there's a lot of places where people don't experience this at all.
Wow. That actually makes me feel rather privileged because I kind of always had that. So, wow. Okay. Yeah, I wish everyone could have that. Just that.
Yeah,
Because even now
me
I can hear
too.
the birds singing, they're sort of waking up because it's kind of early-ish in the morning here. I can hear the birds and yeah, so it's amazing. But yeah, that's interesting. Interesting fact. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Now we've touched on how you got to where you are today. I'm a little bit curious now around, and you shared a little bit how your work works. But anyone that has never heard of it or experienced it, can you sort of, I don't know, that's probably got to be hard, in a short way, explain what you do and what that experience is like?
Hmm.
Mhm.
So, we usually gather either in a beautiful nature space outside, or in an inside big room, kind of like a yoga studio, where I can have all of my instruments in the front, usually, or in the middle, and then people kind of lie down or sit around. my setup. So, first, I really like to start my sessions with a little bit of breathing, like a little breath work introduction to really get them out of their daily life because it's really hard to just, come back from the traffic and the super crazy day at work and then just be like, relax now. So we kind of want to introduce as like a little transition. And then we're really working towards relaxing the mind and allowing, as I said previously, the body to really take charge and start repairing. So, the theory behind sound therapy is a little bit that we're bombarding the brain with so many different waves, sound waves, not trying necessarily to be musical, so that the brain is like, I don't understand any of this. I can't capture any chord progression. It doesn't make any musical sense. So the brain decides to, I can analyze that. I'm shutting down. And this is when the brain can actually go into more of a meditative state, almost like a sleep state, because we use a lot of drony sounds, right? And that's when the person can really get into that deep, relaxed space, which is going to help them a lot in relaxing and taking really some time off being alive and constantly, facing the chaos of the world. So this is a little bit like we're aiming at and how we're trying to organize the sessions.
Okay. Hmm. That sounds very intriguing.
Mhm.
So, if someone's interested in learning more about it, is like, where could they go? Is YouTube a good place to start to get an understanding of it? Like, obviously, you will be the first person to go to, no questions about it. But if someone's sort of just curious, are there like any videos on YouTube that they can just kind of look up in a search to get at least an idea what it is? Do you think that's a good starting
Absolutely.
point?
Absolutely. So there is a bunch of YouTube channels. I think the one that I really like, I don't remember the name, but I think it's Healing Vibrations. But there's a bunch of people who do that. So it's a really good idea to go online and look at YouTube videos about sound healing and sound therapy. And there's going to be a lot of people who are specialized in recording because, we talk about music here, and it's not the same thing to record a sound from a sound bowl than to record a guitar. There's a really weird thing that happens where technology can only, record that much, but we actually have sound waves that are like all the way through here. So instead of cutting them off, it often will project them back into what is audible. So it creates a very muffled sound. So there's people out there who are specialists in recording sound therapies. So when you're listening to it through your headphones, you can receive something that's as close as possible to what's happening in the real world. So I really encourage people to go and have a look online, but also look in your local communities. There's a lot of people in Australia who do this type of work. Look on, Facebook, Instagram, even like Eventbrite, different apps that are there too, and really find a sound healing session and go and experience it. Because as I mentioned, these sound frequencies that are not being transmitted by our technology through our headphones, they still have a really powerful effect on our body. And I feel like this is really kind of like the magic that is lost between listening to something on the computer versus actually visiting and participating in a live session.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. And I guess that goes for even the music, the music we can record properly, live is always different. Even if you go to a concert
Absolutely.
or any other live setting, it's always a different experience because you're there. So yeah, I can kind of understand that for sure. Now we know what you do, how you got to that point, which is an incredible story. And here come some generic questions for you now, but they will hopefully still tie in what we've chatted about up until now. Is there a song that um you have like a special memory to, like that you can say this is one of my all-time favorite songs? And can you share the reason why behind it as well?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. So my favorite band since ever, forever is Radiohead. I don't know why, but I could always really relate to that music. And I remember there's actually two songs Radiohead that I really love. It's Nude and It Might Be Wrong. I think It Might Be Wrong. I think it's called like that. And the story around it is that, I've always, since I was a child, again, I listened to music, and it's almost like I was always there for this quest of finding the sound that I was looking for. And everything I was listening to was not quite that. And I remember being in the library. I was maybe about 13, 12 years old. And one of my best friends at the time, Yasmin, he's like, "Oh my God, look, I found this weird CD at the library." And she's like, "You have to listen to this." And she put the headphones on my head, and I heard that for the first time, Radiohead. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for this whole time. And honestly, since then, it's been my favorite band. There's obviously a lot of incredible musicians that I've, accumulated love for along the way. But Radiohead has always been on this like really high for me. And then there's Nobody for a Million Years, and then everybody else kind of there. And also, with time, I realized that Thom Yorke, the lead singer of Radiohead, he had a really rough go. He was actually kicked out of his first band because they said he was a really shitty singer. And I found that really funny. And his journey really inspired me because he just pushed through. He followed what was so important for him, and he never, ever gave up. And that's something that I always held really close to my heart in my own, exploration and in my own kind of journey of trying to do art, but feeling somehow stuck and feeling somehow like resistant to showing up for myself.
Mm. That's why I love musicians and artists from so many different areas. They always have so much to share, not just their music, but also their own journeys. And that's just, I always love that. It's sad that sometimes they have to go through all these struggles because I don't like to see anyone struggle, of course, but I think we need these people who kind of show us the way sometimes.
Yeah, I
Um,
really agree.
yeah.
And it's being able to be vulnerable at one point, being able to share your story authentically. And I think it's really
Mm.
important because in today's world, that was at least my experience. You see the people who kind of made it, and you're like, wow, they are so great at what they do. But you don't realize that somewhere along the way, those people actually had to learn, they had to practice, they've been refused so many times. They had to push through so many difficult situations. So I love to show that whole journey to becoming this, like, let's say world famous artist, because a lot of the time we just only see the highlights, we don't see the whole journey
Mm.
through, right?
Yeah. I feel that's gone a bit more extreme these days. You just see people, especially with social media and probably specific Instagram, you see all these people on, having these holidays or these successes. But I always stop and ask myself, well, one, is it true? Because there's a lot of lies, unfortunately, on the internet.
Yeah.
And two, how did they get there? They just didn't do that and they were there, So it would be nice to have more people share that type of their journey, their part of their journey, that type of, content, even if they're having a bad day. I mean, I don't like to see anyone crying or whatever and putting that out there, but I feel that's kind of the piece that is missing because it's not all sunshine and smiles. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of hardship, and that looks different for everybody. But yeah, that's the piece that I feel like is hugely missing in a way.
Yeah, I really agree, and I think that it takes a certain type of person to be in the spotlight and to
Mm,
be, in the point where everybody's looking at them. And very often these people actually, they have a little bit of narcissistic personalities. And I think this is exactly why Hollywood has such a bad reputation. because it's filled with these people who kind of feel, they want the attention, they feel comfortable in it. But what does that breed very often? It's, addiction, depression. How many, very famous artists actually even gone as far as suicide because the pressure was just too hard to sustain that level of I'm doing great. Look at me. I'm an actor and I've
Mhm.
win so many awards. How can I show to the world that I'm actually extremely lonely and depressed?
Yeah.
So it's a world that I try to really be careful with. Like I joined Instagram about 6 months ago, to be honest, because I wanted to share my message and kind of like reevaluate what is the purpose of me sharing. Because previously, like I was the person who was like, no, I don't think I want to share my life on there. But as much as I've seen a lot of weird stuff, I've also connected to some incredible people on that platform. So I think we have to use it as a tool. It's like a knife. We can make dinner and feed millions of people, or we can kill a bunch. So I think it's a matter of perspective.
Yes. 100%. Totally agree with you. Yeah. Oh, we probably could talk about that subject on its own for another hour or so, but we'll leave it
Yeah.
at this for now, I think. Now, before we close out our chat, and I think we've covered some really beautiful and important topics and aspects, and I'm sure we could go on. But I'd love to ask the last question of today. And is there a song or a sound in this instance that kind of describes your life and or business?
Hmm. I think it would be really the sound of nature,
Okay.
like a mix of waves of the ocean, kind of like a dreamy filter, put like a dreamy filter on them. And
Okay.
I think just the sound of the forest. Because, when I started making my own music, it's almost like I stepped a couple of steps away from listening to like the music that we hear on the radio because, you're so submerged into your own kind of sounds. So I have to say that it would have to be nature sounds because I'm really loving that integration into all of my sets and all of my journeys.
I love that answer. I think you're the first person who actually said that.
Oh, wow.
I know. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's good because it reminds people that we don't have to pick music that is kind of produced by humans. And sometimes it's needed to step back to where we kind of came from, nature. So I love that. I love
Mhm.
it. Right. Whew. Honestly, I could have talked with you for probably another hour, but we're gonna stop here and let anyone that's here today digest what, especially you have shared today, which I think is incredible and amazing and so needed today. Now, if anyone is interested in Willow's work, you will find all her details in the show description, in the episode description. There you go. It's early, I need coffee. Um, And you can get in touch with her if you're interested to know more or, work with her, collaborate, whatever it is. So please get in touch with Willow. Definitely check her out on Instagram. And otherwise, I think I'm just going to leave it here and let you guys just digest and ponder on what's been said today. There will be lots of takeaways, I hope. Willow, thank you so much for being so open and sharing your journey and what you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really lovely to connect with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And to you, B-siders, yeah, please walk away. I hope you enjoyed this episode and ponder around everything that was said. And please give us feedback if you feel you want to share it. Otherwise, I shall see you again next time. Until then, I'm sending you much music and love. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.